and welcome to We the People. It has now become almost a cliche to say that secularism is at the very heart of the idea of India. But what does secularism mean? Why is it a word that is so frequently used at the center of electoral battlefields? Should that word even be part of the political idiom and the political debate? And can we agree on how to define secularism? This past week, we had the Gujarat Chief Minister, a man widely believed now to be the BJP's national face in 2014, offering one definition of secularism. He said to him, secularism was putting India first. Is that a definition of secularism or is that a definition of nationalism? That's something we'll be asking on We the People today as we ask whether India's model of secularism has succeeded. Let me start with you, Manishankar Iyer. You are, of course, a leader of the Congress party, but you're also the author of a book where you described yourself to be a secular fundamentalist. You're carrying a copy with you. What is secularism to you? Because we had our founding fathers debate it back then and actually not be able to reach an agreement on it. So if you look at Nehru's definition of secularism, who personally was an agnostic, and you look at Mahatma Gandhi, who was a believer but believed that religion and politics should be kept separate, and you take it further to Ambedkar, who actually was a strong proponent of the Uniform Civil Code, there you have three very differing definitions. What is it for you? When you call yourself a secular fundamentalist, what exactly do you mean?
I've said so in my book, that I believe secularism is respecting the right of others to hold beliefs that one does not oneself hold. I regard secularism as the bonding adhesive of our nationhood. I believe that it is only through the celebration of our diversity, including our religious diversity, that we can ensure the unity of the nation. And therefore, I believe that if only a secular India can last, and as Rajiv Gandhi once said in Parliament, perhaps an India that is not secular does not deserve to last.
But do you...
To that extent, I regard secularism as virtually co-equivalent with India's nationhood as I understand it.
Do you believe that religion and politics, or the state and religion, should be kept separate? Or do you believe that in a country like India, where religion is intertwined with culture and therefore part of the everyday lives of many Indians, you cannot have this Western style separation?
The Western definition of secularism is the separation of the state from the church.
Yes.
And although unfortunately we are using that word because there doesn't seem to be a sort of a generally accepted alternative to that expression, we are quite clear that secularism in India does not mean being anti-religion at all. It doesn't mean that at all. It also means that you don't have to be religious yourself to be secular.
Yeah.
What it means is that you accept that India is a country of a plurality of faiths, and that the only way we can all live together is by not only tolerating the faith of others, but by celebrating the fact that India is, in terms of numbers, the single largest Hindu country in the world. Also in terms of numbers, India is the second or third largest Muslim nation in the world.
Okay.
India is the nation where the Christian church was first established so long ago by St. Thomas that I think a Syrian Christian would be justified in regarding the Pope as a Protestant. We are the home of the Sanatana Dharma. We are the home of Buddhism. We are the home of Secularism. We have learned how to coexist with each other for centuries, millennia.
Okay.
So that is.
So you're saying, in a sense, it's a self-evident.
It's a definition of secularism.
So it's
in
a self-evident and self-explanatory diversity, according to you, that is actually civilizational and in our civilizational DNA. Nirmala Sitharaman, yet it is a term that is politically contested, because after all, it was an L.K. Advani who gave the phrase pseudo-secularism to our political lexicon, and now you have a Narendra Modi saying, to me, secularism is putting India first. Now, there are many who would turn around and say, who would not want to put India first? Everybody wants to put India first, but this is a definition of nationalism, not of secularism, and the two are not necessarily interchangeable. What would you say to that?
I'm glad you started off by talking about the discussions which happened in the Constituent Assembly.
Yeah.
They didn't find it fit to put the word secular. You rightly pointed that out. I'm also glad that you're talking about Advani ji speaking about pseudo-secularism. You talk of a positive secularism, then you're charged about communalism and so on. But I want to, for the sake of jigging all our memories, go back to the context in which secularism was added into the Constitution of India.
1976.
When the Parliament had finished, the Lok Sabha had finished its 5 full years term,
Yeah.
and when it was on a 1 year's extension under emergency situation, when most of the opposition leaders were in the jail, when the freedom of the press was curtailed, when the entire country's fundamental rights were, particularly of speech, were under duress, there was a hasty addition made to the preamble saying we are a secular socialistic republic. The discussions in the Parliament even then with the Minister Gokhale, H.R. Gokhale I think it was, who said I may not be able to define democracy, but I can define secularism and socialism. And in that debate, quite a lot of people, if you go back and see the way in which the discussion happened at that time in the Parliament, hardly anyone defined or discussed the need for bringing in secularism. And it was nevertheless brought in. The whole idea, as Mani points out, of India being a secular country, although the word secularism itself coming as it does, the way in which it has come out of medieval Europe, the nation states being formed there and distancing themselves away from the church and so on. This whole debate in India came when you started not treating all religions equal, sarva dharma samabhav, which was the mind of people who framed the constitution for us, and also making sure that all religions are treated equally without running away from religion. But the way in which till before 75 the country slowly but steadily, in spite of Nehruji's declaration even in 1929 in his Lahore assembly Congress session and so on, it was giving a very clear impression that Sarva Dharma Samabhav was not being practiced.
So
and there was a lot of discussion.
Are you saying, ma'am, that the introduction of the word
itself underlines from where we are coming? The constitution makers did not think fit to put the word secular, but they all knew, and all of us know, that
what
this country has treated religion, not tolerating, in fact accommodated and treated one another with respect, and there was no need for wearing it in our sleeve. But the fact remains that moment when all of you all are not treated equally, and there is a kind of treatment which negates some.
Okay.
There was a context in which this became a debatable.
So let me take this on to the other panels. What you're really arguing is that we were always secular, we were intrinsically secular, and there was a politicization in that introduction in 1976. Tavleen Singh, you've argued in a column that I read saying it was called Not Secularism Again, and you said that this is an entirely silly debate for modern India to be having. It's an irrelevant debate. Yet you will see that whether it's the Congress or whether it's indeed Narendra Modi this past week, there is some pressure to position yourself ideologically vis-a-vis this concept of secularism, however you may define it. Why has it become such a politically loaded word? Is it imperative to the idea of India, as some have argued?
No, I actually think that what Mani said has really upset me more than anything else I've heard for a long, long time that you've said, and many things you say upset me. But to say that secularism is the adhesive that holds India together, India? I mean, for goodness sake, are we reducing this magnificent country? The one thing we've achieved since independence is that we are Indian. This is India, and we don't need silly little adhesives, to hold it together.